Give it a second. And we are live. Welcome to the Catholic Answers Super Show. My name is Edgar, filling in for the main host, Cy. I'm here with two awesome individuals in person. It's kind of nice to have a room full of guests. Jeffcam, sorry. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for joining me. Thomas, thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Nice to be in the room full of guests instead of one room with one person and a screen with two.
That's true. That's true. It gets a little awkward when
It's much better.
when you have a full studio set up and there's no guest in the studio except for the host. Yeah, it's a little unfortunate.
Now we can talk over each other and it's on purpose.
Hey, there you go. Exactly. Exactly.
I like this format.
Yeah. All right. Well, today's topic, Vatican. Okay, this is the Pillar Catholic, and I love their title. Vatican says 9 to Lay Homilies in Germany. The German bishops made a request in March. So, looks like the Germans are at it again with their request on trying to almost bring the liturgy down to smelling like the sheep. I guess you can. I'm mixing everything up today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so the Germans have been ever since the synodal way. They introduced the synodal way. They've been trying to introduce things that are a little more heterodox than your typical ways of Catholicism.
Things that make you raise your eyebrows, to say the very least.
Yeah.
Like, lay homilies. What could be the long game here? Or does there need to be a long game even? Or is it just,
Yeah.
what's the point of this?
The Vatican's liturgy department announced Tuesday that it had rejected the German bishop's request to authorize lay preaching at Mass. The Dicastery of Divine Worship said June 23rd that it had informed the German Bishops' Conference chairman, Bishop Heiner Wilmer, in a June 17th letter of the refusal of his request for an indult to allow, in exceptional circumstances, a duly commissioned lay member of the faithful to preach in place of the homily during the celebration of the Eucharist.
Exceptional circumstances.
Exceptional circumstances. You know what it kind of conjures up in my mind? You know where I'm going with this, right?
I know, but I'd like to hear it.
This is going to be a hot take. The extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion, which a very key phrase in there is extraordinary. And a lot of times you're nowadays it seems to be a little more ordinary than an extraordinary circumstance. So I think if something like this were to be approved, how soon before an exceptional circumstances turns into, well, why not?
This is just it. This
Yeah.
is
It's Sunday, yeah.
It's Sunday and
Isn't Mass extraordinary? It
Exactly.
really opens yourself up to a lot of sophistry there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's good to see Rome doing its job like that, like it's supposed to. And I thought something interesting that somebody pointed this out online. This is not my original idea. But somebody pointed out that they mentioned in that letter that it is not a disciplinary issue because disciplines can be changed depending upon the needs of the faithful. But it's actually intrinsic to the liturgy itself, this the homily. So it's like just as we require a priest to say to do the sacrifice of the Mass.
it's interesting you say that because later in the article it says Canon 767 of the Code of Canon Law says that the homily is part of the liturgy itself and is reserved to a priest or a deacon. So like you said, it's not a disciplinary thing. It literally is within the fabric of what the liturgy is, part of the homily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we've probably all been to Masses where we thought, oh my gosh, this homily is terrible. I could do a better job or somebody else could do a better job.
Yeah.
But that's not really the point. It's the sacraments, they are good in of themselves, and so the Mass, I keep being said, it's not done or said, but the Mass happening, right? Sometimes we have to suffer a bad, let's say that there's a priest that doesn't give good homily. It's like, who cares? As long as they're orthodox and within the bounds of, if he's not exciting to listen to, that's fine. Just give us a good orthodox homily.
Yeah.
Preach the faith to us. You've got the gospel, so you can say a few words. We have a priest here that gives like a 2-minute homily, and we have another priest that gives like a 10 or 15-minute homily, and they're both great.
Yeah.
And they go to their strengths.
Exactly. And the other thing is, I remember having a conversation many years ago with one of my family friend, and they were griping about how they get nothing out of the mass because the homily was really, really bad. Or in certain situations, these are Spanish speakers, so they were like, well, the priest doesn't even know how to speak Spanish, and it's really hard to understand. So what's even the point of going to mass if I can't even get anything out of the liturgy? And it's like, hold on a second. Do you receive communion? Are you going for the sacrament itself, or are you going just because you want to hear something that's which is a good thing to want to listen to something that's going to be efficacious in your life, but that's not the main point. It all ties in together. So let's see here. It is said that while expressing appreciation for the pastoral concerns that inspires the request, the dicastery reaffirms that the current discipline cannot be dispensed from the means of an indult, since the reservation of the homily to a priest or deacon is not merely disciplinary norms, but derives from the very nature of the liturgy. There you go again.
You know what I hear right now, if I may be not the devil's advocate, but let's say the German's advocate.
Okay.
Advocate for my people. What I hear is whispers of the charge of clericalism. Ooh, that evil clericalism, because if the homily is reserved to a priest or deacon, and this can't be changed, this isn't discipline, boy, that we really are elevating the clergy above the laity, aren't we? It doesn't that I can hear that charge being muttered about.
Well, I mean, it's if you go with that mindset, then I guess the eventual conclusion to that is when they get rid of what's the ministerial priesthood. I think that's what eventually it starts blurring the lines between the laity and the ministerial priesthood, because then at that point it's just then Father becomes just another one of us who he'll go up there and he has the special thing that he does called the consecration, but we all can do this. We're all participating in the liturgy. It gets a little...
how long until maybe in extraordinary circumstances the laity are doing the consecration now too, right? You can kind of see the
slippery slope.
Yeah, you're right. No, I mean, I don't like to cast aspersions on people's motives, but I sometimes you get the sense that is the goal. Like I joked about an end game earlier, but like sometimes you get the sense that is the goal. It is to really flatten everyone out and say like there's nothing more special about the priest in virtue of his office than there is about the laity in virtue of their office. And whether or not that was the end game of this proposal for extraordinary cases of laity preaching, I can certainly see the slippery slope.
Yeah.
I can see like, well, we got this now, so why not keep bringing the priest down to us? And of course, I mean, I've never seen clericalism defined in a way that is satisfactory. That doesn't sound like a label slung around.
I don't like. Is clericalism.
Right. Yeah. But I have no doubt that actually exists. Like, surely it is possible for a cleric to be much too full of himself for the wrong reasons. As opposed to the right ones, whatever. But yeah, so I brought that up just to see, like what the consensus would be. But yeah, I don't think this is clericalism at all. This is a place for everything and everything in its place.
Yeah. It's like it's looking at it too with a postmodern lens of everything is about power and power imbalances.
Yeah.
And it's never a sense of if you have the authority to do something important, like say the Mass. You also have this incredible responsibility.
Yeah.
And Joe Heschmeyer likes to point out how James says that if you're going to be a teacher, you're going to be judged to a higher standard. And that should be terrifying to us. I mean, here I am like speaking on Catholic Answers YouTube channel. You're held, that priest is held to a higher standard as well. So if we're saying like, well, I really want to do the powerful thing he does, then the question should be, am I doing it? Do I want to do it because I want to have the respect, so-called, that he has? Am I doing it for? Do I want to do it for these right reasons? And really kind of dig into the why there. What is it that they're trying to push?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, that's for sure. I was gonna say something, but it's the what you said about being held to a higher standard. I remember in college when you signed the paper of I'm gonna study theology and probably work in the church. One of the things that they told us is we basically dedicated a whole class to this, and they said, and they repeated it. The professor repeated it and said, so are you sure you want to get into this? Because this is, you're going to enter as a teacher. And as a teacher, you're preaching the gospel, you will be held to a higher standard. But this, to me, the whole idea of, a lay person wanting to give that, it's the desire for a title, but without the desire for a title, I would say, and this is all speculation, but also it shifts the conversation to, well, I should have a right to do this too. It kind of strips away this isn't a duty that the priest is called for, but I have a right because I'm a person. It also, to me, screams in some ways the whole conversation around women priests, because it's not a calling, but it's like, I should have the right to do this. If they have a right to do it, I should have a right to do this. It starts with things like this, like in extraordinary circumstances, we're going to accept this. And, here and there, but then eventually that gets stripped away. Well, we're doing it every Sunday, which is fine. And then before you know it, I would say it turns into, I have a right to do this. And I don't see why not. I spoke to a priest friend of mine not long ago, and he was telling me that he was transferred to a parish, and that, there was a priest who was there for a very long time. And as he's getting ready for Mass, a lay person comes up and says, I was like, I'm sorry, who are you? He's like, I'm going to process down with you. It's like, what do you mean you're going to process down? He says, yeah, well, I'm the ordinary minister of Holy Communion because I do this every Sunday. It's like, and he kind of looked, there's like, I'm the ordinary minister of the Eucharist. You are not an ordinary minister.
Hold on.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
God bless the priests and some of those random things they end up dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, so I'll tell a quick story about my time when I was in the Navy. I would run the Sunday services in absence of a priest. And if you do a Google search for this, the Archdiocese of the Military, you can find a PDF that has the rubrics for it. So one of the things that it specifically outlines in there is that you are not to give a homily. So
interesting.
Yeah,
that's added. There's mention of that at the bottom of this article at the end of the whatever it was that the Vatican said, the Vatican's letter to the German. It mentioned this circumstance. It said, quote, where no priest is available, no celebration of the Eucharist takes place. Rather, according to the norms of the Church, provision is made for celebrations of the Word of God within which suitable forms of proclamation or interpretation of sacred scripture may be entrusted to lay faithful without any special indult being required, end quote. So that sounds a little different from what you're talking about, where there's just like no homily at all, but it didn't really give a whole lot of wiggle room there.
Yeah, and just some good news, because I think sometimes we get just beset with all these disasters that are happening in the church, but in a good direction. When I first joined the Navy in 2004, and I was on a ship, it was too small to have our own chaplain, but they would hold communion services on the ship. And I remember not going to those because they would just give communion out to anybody, and the Blessed Sacrament was not really treated with the respect that our Lord is due. And so that ended up stopping after a few years, and they took all the sacred vessels back, and they stopped doing communion services in absence of a priest. They just did, again, Sunday services in absence of a priest, where there's no Eucharist, but you do the liturgy of the Word, you do the Psalms, and you pray some of the prayers together.
Wow.
But no more abuse of our Lord in the Eucharist. So that was a huge win for.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you say like they stopped when they stopped having Eucharistic services? That meant like they just stopped distributing communion, even though they had consecrated hosts there. I got a little mixed up there.
Yeah. So like on my ship, we had a locker. I think it was just a locker somewhere that had was it the Ciborum, the sacred vessels with our Lord and the Eucharist. I don't think that they had the chalice, but I could be wrong. I don't know for sure, because like I said, I went to one of these and I saw them giving communion to everybody. I was like, I'm not going to this anymore.
Yeah.
And I mean, I heard, there were abuses across the fleet generally. So they ended up just recalling all of the sacrament to the various chapels and changing the way they did business.
That's a great outcome for that. I mean, even though the practicing Catholics, unfortunately, at that point, you're not going to get the Eucharist anymore. But if it kind of removes the abuse happening and the danger to the souls because of people receiving communion without realizing what they're doing, why not?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's refreshing to hear the bureaucracy actually functioning in its intended purpose, not just getting in the way of things without cause, but making sure that the most important things are treated with the reverence they deserve.
It's interesting that, they're bringing this up as a request to the Vatican. My question is, again, speculation. Has this already been happening? Because, if they're requesting it, I'm sure there's already been plenty of thought behind it. I had an experience once where, and this is on comment of this next paragraph. Actually, I'll read the paragraph. The letter said, "This norm has been repeatedly confirmed by the magisterium, especially in the instruction Redemptionis Sacramentum, which expressly excludes the possibility that lay faithful may give the homily during the celebration of the Mass, even under another designation." I actually got into a little bit of a spat with somebody in a prior job where they were allowed to give homilies, and they were non-Catholics. Some of them were actively living out sinful lives, and were told that they could, but under the guise of, it's just a reflection. It's just a reflection, and this is allowed to happen. So
during Mass, in between the liturgy of the Word and the liturgy of the Eucharist, up in the Holy Sanctuary at the pulpit where the priest normally stands. But it's just a reflection.
It's just a reflection.
Okay.
The priest would go up there and it'd just say, the homily was literally, "Ladies and gentlemen, X is coming up to give a reflection." And that's literally the homily. It's like,
A rose by any other name would be just as slippery.
Yeah, that's
this reminds me, I also don't like when today's homily is, we're going to listen to so-and-so from such and such place talk to us and then ask for money. I really dislike that. I think you can push that to after Mass or even before Mass, but please don't
the missionaries, right? The missionaries that come, actually, so I've seen both of those circumstances where they'll come in and it's the homily, but it's not a homily, or sometimes it's a sister that goes up there that gives a non-homily homily. But then you have other parishes that tend to be a little more on the traditional side, or even not even the traditional side, just faithful. And it's either before Mass or around the announcements time where they come in, and at times it feels like a second homily, but it's better to do it then during the announcements than during the time of the homily.
I want to go back to Johnny Osprey, 6056. He made a comment a little while ago. "I once attended a Mass at a priory that shall go unnamed, where the homily was a handful of monks and sisters doing, 'Well, this is what the reading means to me.'" Well,
okay, Bible study.
Yeah. So, the one mitigating factor on that is that they're monks and sisters. So if there's anyone I'm going to trust to reflect on what it means to me, I guess that's the least bad. But in the middle of Mass, maybe we just keep that for directly after. Who's to say you can't process out and then say, let's talk about the gospel? Great. Outside of Mass, great. Inside of Mass, let's keep things ordered.
Yeah, isn't that why they have evening Bible studies with your friends to kind of go through before readings beforehand?
Isn't that why they have priories? Isn't that forgive me for my ignorance of religious life, but what else do they do all day?
Yeah, and the thing is, there's nothing boring about trying to live a life of virtue, because if you are, you're going to come into struggle and difficulties, and when you look at the gospel or the readings for that day, you should be able to tie that into something. And if you can't, there are so many saints who have written great homilies. I know the Curé of Ars, I had a priest who would just read some from the Curé of Ars every homily for daily Mass. And it was like, there's a book on his homilies. You just read one of his homilies.
Oh yeah, I've seen priests on Twitter just be like, if I don't have an idea for a homily, I just open the Church Fathers and rip off whatever they said.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's actually a podcast out there that takes the Sunday Mass readings and breaks them down from an apologetics perspective. So if a priest wants to know an apologetics perspective, they actually have it. It's Carlo's old podcast that he concluded, I think, this past year. Yeah, Sunday Catholic Word. That's kind of what it is.
What kind of Catholic apologetics podcast network would put something that brilliant out?
Okay, so wait a minute now. But if a layperson writes the homily, but the priest gives it, is that okay?
But it's because I would say it's not the priest giving it word for word. It's him taking that idea, the idea of what the Mass readings are, and kind of making it his own. Mm-hmm. Unless he is taking it word for word, and it's like,
But it's okay, because I'm being a little bit of a devil's advocate at this point, though, because he's still delivering it, right? It ultimately he's delivering it. But there are very good lay theologians. Franciscan university's got a bunch of them.
Yep.
There's throughout the United States, there's a bunch of them.
Have you ever read Dr. John Bergsma's Bible Reflections or Sunday Mass Reading Reflections?
I have not.
It's the coolest thing ever. And the parish that I go to, it's not Dr. John Bergsma's, but I can tell that all the priests and the deacons read the same stuff because there's always one name mentioned at every single homily. It's Dr. Peter Kraft. Every single one. So, and I kind of look over at my wife and like, yep, they read the same thing.
Yeah.
It's every Sunday. It's like, hey, at least you're coming up with stuff. You're kind of getting ideas. But
the thing is too, like, shoot. It went in my brain and went out. So sorry.
There it goes.
Yeah.
Oh well. Who's this? TJ Armendariz, 354. Apologies for not pronouncing your name right, as I'm sure I did. Curious about seminarians giving a post-communion reflection at daily mass with no homily. Kind of feels like an abuse, but in the year before ordination to the transitional diaconate also makes sense. Well, there was a bit in this article in the letter to the Germans. Just call this the letter to the Germans. That said,
the word of the Lord.
or is this the letter? Is this the letter, or is this Redemptionis Sacramentum? I think that's what it is. So it's the 2004 Vatican instruction, Redemptionis Sacramentum, said the prohibition of, this is from the Pillar article, the prohibition of the admission of laypersons to preach within the Mass also applies also to seminarians and several other groups. The wrinkle in TJ's question was it's a post-communion reflection at a Mass with no homily. That does kind of feel like we're just...
Well, then you start making it your own at that point. It's just because you're...
Making what? The Mass your own? Or?
Yeah, I mean, you start kind of breaking away from... What's the term? I always forget. Do the red, say the black.
Say the black, do the red.
Say the black, do the red.
Yeah. And so that's the thing is like look, buddy. you're
Fire
like,
'em up.
You're like 3 minutes of post-communion reflection is never going to be as interesting as the interior reflection people can make just by just thinking about what they just received in our Lord and the Blessed Sacrament.
I would contest the interesting part, that it's not going to be as interesting because, but I would agree it's not going to be as fruitful. Because you can have a very boring prayer time be very fruitful. But yes, I mean you're right. I get the spirit of what you're saying.
Yeah,
like
thanks.
It's not going to be it's not what that time is for, right?
Correct.
And even if you have even if he just reads 3 minutes of Peter Kraft to you, that might be the coolest thing you've heard about the Eucharist all week. But that's not going to be as profitable as sitting silently with our Lord in the most intimate of settings, right?
I got to say, I really appreciate, especially weekday masses, when there is no homily. It's just sometimes, because weekday masses, homily is not required, but obviously Sunday masses are. But there's something about just listening to the word and then just jumping right into the Eucharist. I don't know. There's something about that. By the way, I wanted to mention the document that they keep referring back to, Redemptionis Sacramentum. I started reading it a while ago. It's actually really helpful and informative because it helps to clarify a lot of things that were kind of ambiguous about the liturgy, obviously post-Vatican II and a lot of the kind of craziness that started happening afterwards. It helped to clarify a lot of stuff. So things about communion, obviously things about the homily and all sorts of stuff. So I recommend people check that out. It's a really cool document. You can find it on the Vatican's website.
Do you think it made your participation at Mass more fruitful?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Should we just be reading from the homily the whole time? Is that what the priest should be doing?
Well,
Sorry, there's my troll question.
I guess this goes off on a tangent, but it made me appreciate the Mass a lot better, especially since I knew what was happening and I knew kind of the structure behind it. Because think about it, whenever there is chaos, it feels like I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what's going on. It just you can't really dive deeper. But when you know rules a little better, the regulations behind it, understanding the prayers of the Mass, it allows you to dive deeper. And I think Redemptionis Sacramento actually did that for me. So
nice. Well, the instructions matter, and so often any frustrations that we may have in Mass, they're not personal preference. I mean, I have my preferences certainly, but like it's if you're not following the rubrics, then you're not doing what the Church asks, and the Church doesn't just kind of willy-nilly make up a Mass and like, oh, we're going to do this so that our priests look amazing and whatever. It's there's theological lessons within everything.
Yeah.
And so if you dig into that, this is something you could preach about for a year as a priest on your homilies. It's like every little bit of the Mass and why this part is done like this and why this is done this way. And it's so fruitful to understand. And then once you learn that, you can pray more carefully. And then you also realize why, like, you know, having some little innovation in there, which maybe somebody did and they feel really special about it because they came up with it themselves, is just kind of like, no, you do that at Sunday school, do that in another setting. But
there is something really special of like sticking to the rubrics, because if you are a Catholic who travels around the world, it's home. Like I remember being in Europe for, you know, studying abroad for a semester. I ended up taking a weekend trip to Budapest, Hungary, and walking in and going to Mass and knowing exactly where I am in the liturgy. I felt like I was home. And when you introduce these innovations and, you know, these little things that you want to change up, those people that maybe are visiting and that you know want to partake in this with you, and they're not from nearby and probably don't even speak your language, you're kind of shunning them in some ways. You're saying like, well, this is the way we do things here, so if you want to participate, you can. But
yeah. Or at the very least, you're just you're almost doing the very thing you accuse people doing by being too rigid, right? By being like, we're set in our ways here, and you can deal with that or not. Whereas usually the complaint is like, oh, you got to have the Mass the same in every time and place. Isn't that so rigid? But you make a good point that's actually more comforting for people, rather and telling people who are used to that they got to get used to this now is not exactly the antidote to rigidity that you think it is. Yeah. I think this makes me think of like when I realized the great part of having Latin as a universal language of the church. The first time it clicked for me was 10 years ago when my family and I we went to Lourdes for the first time, only time, God willing, the first of many. But we went to Lourdes for the first time, and and there were two occasions when I realized it. One was at one of the masses at Lourdes. And there's pilgrims from all over the world there, right? Like all the ushers, their name tags, they have like all the flags of the nationalities whose country they speak. There's so much linguistic diversity there. But when it came to the sign of peace at the Mass, you know what you could say to the person next to you? Pax Christi. Because, oh, look at that. We have something that we can say to each other. You can just say that. And then the other thing was during a rosary procession, when for all the decades of the Hail Marys, they would pray them in some language, English, Spanish, French, whatever. But the Lord's Prayer was always in Latin, Pater Noster, quies in caelis. And I was like, wow, this is like the unifying moment when we all know exactly what we're saying right now, hopefully. But that's the idea anyway. That's the intention behind, I think, having Latin be the universal language of the church. And it goes to the same thing. Someone might say, oh, but that's so rigid. Why do you want Latin to be everywhere? But no, you see how useful it is. It's binding together. It's not just useful, but it's beautiful. It's home, as you said.
Yeah. One of Lena's friends, a non-Catholic friend, she was talking to Lena about her church. She's like, oh, well, at my church we do this, and my church we do that. And Lena started explaining to her that, well, no matter where you go, you have the same readings, you have the same structure everywhere you go. And it was kind of a big eye opener for her, realizing, well, how do you guys even do that? How do you guys even, if it's universal, if it's all over the world, if you could literally get up and go to Japan right now and attend a Mass there, it's going to be the same readings, same structure, same prayers. It's almost mind-boggling. So when you introduce the innovations, you kind of remove some of that. You remove that bit of the universality.
Or even if you don't remove it in reality, you remove these signs to our senses that drive that point home, right? That's why the faith is sacramental, and why God incorporates things that we can touch and taste and see with our senses. It's to inform us and reinforce in us the truths of the realities beneath, right? And introducing these innovations that sound kind of cool into the Mass, like, hey, let's have the layperson go up and preach the homily instead. That's all well and good, but guess what was actually being signified by the priest being up there? He's in persona Christi. He's Christ on the Sermon of the Mount. He's not literally Christ. He's just a man, but he's in persona Christi, right? He's standing in his person. And maybe you haven't like committed a horrible blasphemous sacrilege by having a lay person do that, but you've actually done the people of God a disservice by separating what they perceive with their senses a little bit more from what we're supposed to be revering, which is Christ the teacher in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to be a great saint, I think the church has made it pretty clear you do not need to be a priest or a bishop or a pope to be a great saint.
Yeah. Francis de Sales wrote a whole book about that. That was the point of Introduction to the Devout Life, which I'm not finished with yet because, my gosh, that is hard to read.
Yeah.
in the oh no, I'm such a big sinner sense. Not in the hard to read, like hard to understand sense. It's very easy to understand. Not to get off on a tangent.
Something I like about the readings too is not only are they universal in the Latin Rite, but there are other of our Protestant brothers and sisters that have joined us in the 3-year cycle. So I've got Anglican friends who will talk about the same readings on
Cool.
our cigar night. And then I see Buck here in the chat is confessional Lutheran. I'd be curious, Buck, if you guys read the same readings we do, or if you're on a different schedule. But I think that was a power move by the Catholics when they did that and said, like, come on in and join us for the readings, because now they're closer together with the church, the universal church.
How long ago was that 3-year cycle instituted? Was that what the
In the
council?
60s, I think.
That was
yeah.
the council.
Post
Oh, okay.
Vatican
I
Council.
wanted to do the Dune. Our plans are measured in centuries thing. Okay, decades at least. It might work sooner than expected. No, I saw those comments from Buck. He also says, I went through the Bible in a year with Father Mike Schmitz. I subscribe to Father Mark Goring, and I'm a Lutheran. Not for long, Buck. Not for
right.
long. Stick with it, buddy. We're happy
say-
you're here, though.
All I'm saying is Luther started as a Catholic priest. So make your way home. Come on,
You
man.
can end as one, Buck. That a boy. Complete the circle.
Mark Mormon says, when I went to Mass at San Francisco and saw the coffee and donuts, I felt at home. Yeah.
you go.
All right. Hey, it's something, man. It's a start.
When you start with Mass in San Francisco, I got scared for a second.
Hey, San Francisco, the Archdiocese has a lot of really great parishes.
Okay, yeah, hand it to the Diocese of Archbishop Cordileone. We'll
Yeah,
I shouldn't take shots at them.
Yeah, Father Joseph Isla has a parish there. He was a priest in the Central Valley before he was moved around. You know Father Joseph Isla, don't you? He was at TAC for a while.
I not when I was there, I don't think.
Okay, solid priest, but he's in San Francisco now. And I think it's at Star of the Sea Parish. Beautiful church.
Very good.
Yeah. Also, I have to. Okay, a little bit of context on this. Justin Webster, he had a handle that was Justin, but it's spelled with one N. So just one N, and we were all saying just one N Webster. And I think the last Super Show we did, I think he said, I'm regretting putting the one in my name because we never clicked for any of us that his name is actually Justin, not just one N. So Justin, my apologies for that and for the weeks and weeks of mispronouncing your name.
Please, Justin. Is he even here right now?
did we scared him off.
Did we chase him off because we're?
He changed his name, so he's actually now Justin_Webster.
Oh,
on
good.
YouTube.
That's you. All right, good.
He says
We weren't too unk for him.
Not too much. He said also every mass is connected across time and space by the same one sacrifice and is concelebrated on earth and in heaven by us and the saints and the angels. So some liturgical unity is good. Yeah, you don't say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One baptism. So should we go on to some lighter stuff for a minute?
Yeah, we definitely.
German's gonna German. Glad Rome did their job. Yeah. Keep it up.
Speaking of Rome, right?
There's a great picture out today of Pope Leo talking to, I guess, some kids at summer camp at the Vatican, which, by the way, how do I get to send my kids to summer camp at the Vatican?
I know, right?
That sounds awesome. And they have a sweet water slide, which is apparently a huge inflatable Titanic.
Which is, it was in the Paul VI Center, wasn't it? I think so.
It is.
Yes.
I
Yes.
have the picture right now. What?
So, chat, if you have seen this, I'd like to hear your reactions. Thumbs up or thumbs down. I'll hold off on a reaction
Can
before.
we get it on the
like
feed
it.
somehow? Is that?
I don't know if we can, unfortunately. Not
we
just
can
yet.
just-
But I know.
Or
I
we
don't
can
know.
just do this.
Or you could just do
If
that.
you can even see
There we go.
that, chat, I don't know. But
Hold on, let me see it. Let me see your laptop.
there it is. That's.
Do the solo shot on Thomas and then flip. To
Oh
the-
yeah, yeah. This is the picture we're talking about. So
Oh,
there's.
yeah.
So there's Papa, there's the kids at summer camp, and there, for some reason, is Her Majesty's ship, the Titanic, stern up, just go. This is the crazy thing about it. So it's not enough that like we just decided we needed a bouncy house in the Paul VI Center. Okay, it had to be the Titanic bouncy house, and it had to be that Titanic sinking actively bouncy house. I have so many questions. Number one, is it fun to go down? It looks really sweet, actually.
To be fair, there's what, 2 bouncy houses? There's like a castle there too?
I didn't even see that in the background.
So maybe this is what happened. Maybe they're like, all right, we ordered a bunch of castles. It's like, actually, we're short one. These are your options. Actually, all we have is the sinking Titanic ship. Do you want it?
And for some reason, this is the last one available in Vatican City or in Rome. The one bouncy house salesman has just been holding on to this thing since who knows how long. This is one of the more like absurd moments of modern papacy, I suppose. But I'm glad that it's absurd in the way that we can actually just laugh at it and not like clutch our pearls.
Oh, still better than the creepy like satanic looking thing behind the throne in that hall.
It is fitting that it's at the Paul VI Center.
Wait, are you talking about the Jesus with the tree thing, whatever?
Yeah.
With the nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
Actually.
But I saw some pearl clutchers online about it, and I was like, guys, just like it's okay. It's okay to have funny things like this. And I also thought, who's trolling who? Like, put on like the tinfoil hat. The first level tinfoil hat is like, oh, look, it's like a metaphor for the Vatican. The ship is going to say, like, well, what if the Vatican's trolling the UK or something? Oh, actually, it was a British ship that was sinking. So, I don't know. I mean,
we'll beat you in soccer too.
You can go 50. Yeah, exactly. It could be a whole football thing. I don't know, but overall, it looks like if I was a kid and I was in the Vatican and Pope Leo was talking to me, and then I was like, and after the Pope's done, you get to go on this sweet water slide bounce house. I mean, that would be an like Pope Leo brings the fun, right? Like
clearly, yeah.
Like best Pope ever, according to all these kids.
So are you given the benefit of the doubt to this was a decision he personally signed off on, and not just he walked into the Paul VI Center and was like, okay. All right.
Piously, I will give all good stuff happens because of Pope Leo. All bad things happen because of other random people.
The Germans.
And the Germans.
All right, we have to start looking at how we get our kids there. How do we get our kids to go to summer camp there? And let's be honest, kids, for the pearl clutchers here, it's not in the actual Vatican Church. Mm-hmm. It's not in St. Peter's. It's literally in one of the halls.
An assembly hall.
It's in the weird building. The building that was already weird.
Yeah, exactly. Just throw more weird stuff in there. Why not?
Johnny Osprey says, it'll inspire the children to learn Memento Mori. Never too young. Never too young, right?
Yeah, that's...
To start cultivating a holy fear of death. That's right.
Oh, man. Well, speaking of families and kids, there's something you wanted to share.
Yes, I sure did. But at first I got to put a little skull into the chat there. Okay. So I wanted to share this because this is something very cool that my priest has done. I don't know why our crucifix turned there.
Oops.
Our priest, Father Anthony, started this thing called the J24 families, and I thought it would be worth sharing because we're always trying to look for ways to hew closer to the Lord and kind of practical ways in which to live our faith. So he's created this thing at our church, and J24 is a reference to the 24th chapter of book of Joshua, right, where he says, "As for me and my household, we shall serve the Lord." And so there's kind of this pledge, which we'll do after the homily. He'll pull some families forward that have talked about this before and prayed over it. And so here's kind of the breakdown of how it goes. Number one, we put God first. So we attend Mass faithfully on Sundays and holy days of obligation. We pray together each day. We learn the stories of our faith from the Bible and the lives of the saints and understand our family story as a continuation of these. We serve the less fortunate. That's the first bit, right? That's like a really good starting point. We reject false gods as part two. We don't allow work, school, hobbies, or extracurricular activities to take control of our lives. This is a big one. Children under 16 in our household do not have smartphones or tablets of their own with internet access. And their use of internet within the home is filtered and monitored. All members of the family, moderate their use of technology, media, and entertainment. Number three, we spend time together. We share a meal on most days and share about our lives in conversation. We share responsibility for household duties. Everybody contributes, etc. Number four is we use words to build up one another. We always tell each other the truth. We keep our word. We say please, sorry, and thank you. And then number 5 is that we ally with like-minded families, and so you kind of grow this community beyond just your group of husband, wife, children, but you spend time with other children that have done that. And my family did it in 2021, I think, and with a number of other families. And then we've seen since then, every maybe 5 or 6 months or so, there's a batch of families that does this.
So by did it, you mean you guys publicly in front of the whole congregation, you made some public voice of assent to
Correct.
this,
And we all
this pledge?
the 4 of us that were above 7 years old signed it, and then our younger 2 boys at the time were not quite that age. So actually, we want to do it again at some point soon and have them sign it now that they're older. But I mean, it's some of these things we do, we stick to it, and some, like the children under 16 in our house do not have smartphones or tablets. That's pretty easy to stick with. But share a meal on most days, like we could get a little bit better at that. There's obviously, you're not saying like, I'm going to do this and I got to go to confession if I screw one of these things up. But it's such a good sort of foundational thing. And then you can support other families doing that too, because sometimes when you have families and like, well, so-and-so has an iPhone and he's 12, why can't I have an iPhone? And now you have other families that are all doing this together. And it ends up being awesome. So I love it. I recommend other parishes steal this from us and, talk to your priest about it. Or if you're a priest, look over it prayerfully and see if it's something that might help your congregation.
If anyone's curious out there, wants to bring this up to their pastor, this is the parish of Our Lady of Mount Carmel in San Diego. Also my parish. Jeff and I both go there. But yeah, if you want to look this up, Our Lady of Carmel, San Diego, sure. J24. We should just drop it in the chat, shouldn't we?
Drop a link in the chat.
Just drop the link in the chat. But yeah, take this to your priest and see if he thinks this would be a cool thing to implement. We do go to the same parish. My wife and I haven't implemented this, haven't taken this pledge yet. But I do like the practicality of it. And that's one of the things I like a lot about Father Anthony Soroki, the priest who designed this, is he does a lot more than just make pious exhortations. He doesn't just say families need to be more holy or families need to pray more. Families are good. Go families. No, he sat down and he put this thing together. I don't know if he was working with people to write it out, but these things get really concrete, right? We pray together each day. Children under 16, no smartphones or tablets. We always tell each other the truth. These are like concrete things that you have to think about. And the cherry on top is that it's a public. He says publicly commit. Families are publicly committing to certain principles. And yeah, I've been at masses at our parish where families come up and make this pledge in front of everybody that they're going to do this, and that holds you accountable, because all of us have told ourselves one day or another that I'm going to do this now. I'm going to make this change to my life. I'm going to pray at this time every day, or I'm going to do this, and then we just fall through because we're not accountable to anybody. But if you make this pledge publicly, and then someone comes over to your house and sees that you're not living up to these standards, they can ask you about that.
There's a little bit of pushback in the chat. I want to read it to you, give a little response.
Right.
So, Condico Clips says, too introverted. Really? Poor kids. Who is it awesome for, though? Who's it awesome for?
My kids love it. My oldest son is 18 now. He still does not own his own phone, and he's really adopted that as part of his personality. And he's very proud to not be a screenager, as he says.
Screenager, that's what he calls it.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a thing where there are a lot of young people who have a hard time with how to communicate because they're so used to, now I will say this, I will point the fingers at myself. It is hard to put down a cell phone. I like playing with my phone. I like zooming through social media. I like learning things. I like reading things. I like getting distracted by funny memes. So I need to have this sort of thing for my accountability too. But I'm a 47-year-old man who's at least got some formation, and I wasn't raised with this. So when there was no cell phones when I was 15, there were Game Boys and stuff. But like, if you're raised with it, it can be incredibly addicting and powerful, and we see that as so dangerous. So I'm putting it out there too because it's not impossible to do. A lot of people think I can't make kids do this. Like, yeah, you can. You sure can. And then try to find other ways in which you can celebrate your kids and give them nice things that they enjoy or nice time together, and they will not miss it. That at first they might be a little bit disgruntled, but eventually they're going to be loving it.
No, I was
Super
disgruntled for a long time from middle school through high school about the fact that my parents didn't let me have a phone, and I turned out fine and happy, and they were absolutely 100% in the right to do that. Like, I think they took a lot of grief from me for a long time, but my gosh, I am so glad that I did not have my brain fried by smartphones and the social media algorithms when I was in my formative years.
Yeah, what was the conversation we were having a couple weeks ago, where we were saying that there was a generation of kids who were given smartphones and told, here, this is great for your social life, and just unrestricted because parents didn't know the chaos and the horrible things that could be online. Do you remember this conversation we had about because the generation that we were talking about were the people who are now young adults, who are now in their early 20s, who had unrestricted access to their phones, who were also robbed of their ability to, their graduation, 8th grade graduation, and high school graduation, and also potentially their college graduation, depending on where they went with the whole COVID rules thing. So I see part of that, like that generation, because of a lot of psychological damage was given, taking your phone away from a kid or not giving it to them actually makes them, I would say, more social and in person. I mean, I see your kids, they are some of the most socially aware human beings I've ever met that can have actual mature conversations, and they're like 10. Like
you're going like, they're like this high.
They're like sometimes I get schooled by them, man. Let's be honest.
Yeah, your kids are like 2 and they're like this high, right?
That's exactly it. Yeah.
It is a thing. Like I've met people through the internet and in all my life. I mean, I met my wife through Catholic Match, so I am used to being online and meeting people that way. And it's a cool thing when you can do it that way. But there are like hundreds, if not thousands, of loose connections I've had online of people I've never actually met, and of probably tens of thousands of interactions that are who knows what, like bad or good or whatever. So give them that foundation of being able to make friends in real life and how to talk to people, look them in the eye and shake their hand and that kind of thing. That is like such a blessing, because no matter what, like as life gets crazier and more expensive out here in California or whatever, I don't need to go to a place to have a good time. If I'm just with my friends, that's a good time.
Yeah.
I could sit there and have tea or coffee with my friends on a Friday afternoon, and that's all I need to have a great time.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what you're giving your kids when you hold back on those phones for now.
Yeah.
You give them the opportunity to have friendships be meaningful and truly like one of the greatest gifts that God gives us is friendships.
You know what's one of the most interesting parts of this pledge that started this conversation? There's obviously we've been talking about the phones for no phones for kids under 16. The very, very last item on this list under the 5th, I don't know, what do we call these pillars? We ally with like-minded families. All the way at the end, it says, when social relationships consistently lead us away from God, we reduce or eliminate the time and attention given to those relationships. That might be the hardest one to actually pledge to, like, spend less time with people who get in the way of my relationship with God.
Did
That's
you know
tough.
that there's a place you
I
can
did not
turn
know that.
first that features the
come
newest,
through?
most exciting Catholic
know.
resources, as well
Yeah,
as a huge
that's a
selection
challenging
by some
one.
of the
That's the
best
most
Catholic
challenging thing on
authors
there.
and speakers on the planet?
And I mean,
It's our
we
online
know
store
we can all
at
like say,
shop.catholic.com.
yeah, of course you should.
All of our
get
offerings are
out of
time-tested and
relationships that are
apologist-vetted
detrimental to
and trustworthy and
to your
faithful to
spiritual
the
life. But to
teachings
actually
of the
like
Catholic
commit to it and
Church.
pledge to it, that
And of
kind
course, the
makes it
lights
more
are always
concrete in your
on
mind
for
and
your
makes it more
shopping
scary.
convenience.
Yeah, it makes
It's
you really
one-stop shopping
reevaluate
made
your life and your
affordable and
priorities.
easy.
Than there.
Shop.
I know I'm way too addicted to my
Catholic.com.
phone. And what kind of scared me the other day is I always have my phone in my hand, and my son grabbed it and started like doing this. It's like, I don't like the habit that I'm building in.
Convicted.
Yeah, my 2-year-old has just started. For a long time, he was not that interested, but he has just started recently. Every time my wife and I are looking at our phone for whatever reason, he says, I want to see. It's every time now. He's finally realizing, like, this is cool.
Well, my wife FaceTimes her family every day, family or friends. So she's always on the phone talking to them. And I get it. That's like the least harmful thing because you're just talking to your family, but he's already associating. So he walks around, he's like screaming out the top of his lungs, like yelling at the phone. It's like,
Okay, wait. That's actually pretty funny. It's kind of worth it for that. It's kind of worth it for that.
yeah, well, guys, check it out in the chat. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Thomas.
This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to have 2 awesome hours on Catholic Answers Live. First hour, we're talking to the one and only John Martinoni, who runs the Bible Christian Society. We're going to talk about where Catholicism is in the Bible. And the second hour, we're going to talk to Jason Everett, and we'll be talking about transgender ideology. So stay tuned for that. We'll be back in a few minutes after we take a short little break. Thanks, guys.